Hello, thank you for watching my channel today. My name's Sarah and this is my channel, Your Tree Shelf. And today I am going to be talking just about one book for this video. So I said when I made a video a few months ago thinking about things I wanted to talk about in the future, that I wanted to talk about some more books which help with your own personal growth and development. And I wanted to talk about them and how I've related them into my life. And that was also one of the reasons that I set this channel up in the first place, not to just talk about the books that I'm reading and loving, but also to talk about that kind of area of books, which some people call self-help. I really hate that term. So this book is one that has really profoundly influenced my way of thinking and really sums up a lot of the things that I believe, and so I really wanted to talk about this for a whole video. So the book that is in question is The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer. So I came across this because I heard Michael interviewed on Oprah's Super Soul Sessions, and what he was saying really reached me very deeply, and so I got this book for Christmas last year, not the one just gone, the one before, and I've only just read it. So I'm going to try my best to explain the book. I don't want anybody to think that I'm preaching to them or to try and convert them into a particular way of thinking. I'm just saying what reached me in this book, and if that is of benefit to anyone else, then that's awesome. So this basically is a book about how to try and free yourself from negativity, unhelpful thought patterns, and from the fear and anger and jealousy and rage and negative emotions that influence us on a day-to-day basis. And so it starts off by talking about our thoughts. So as we all know, our mind, our thoughts talk to us continuously. So throughout the day, everything we see, we have an internal commentary, or everything someone says to us, we have an internal reaction, and that chatter goes on constantly. So even tiny things like you might just see a book lying around, you think, oh, I like the cover of that book, that reminds you of this. And I remember when so-and-so lent me that book, I wonder what they're doing. Oh, I haven't seen them for ages. Oh, I better give them a call. Oh, I can't give them a call because I've got to do this today. And our mind just goes on and on like that with a load of old rubbish half the time. And a lot of the stuff that goes through our heads isn't helpful in any way. So one of the concepts, which I can get my head around this concept, but it might be difficult to get your head around this concept. One of the concepts is that we are not our thoughts, but we are the awareness, the listening of our thoughts. So basically, when I have a thought which says, I really don't want to go to work tomorrow, for instance, that thought is not me. I am the one who is listening to the thought, if that makes sense. I know that's kind of a weird concept. So it's about tuning in to the awareness and tuning out from the thoughts, basically. So he then goes on to talk about how we basically have fear, which is ruling our lives. So one line which really struck me is a lot of people talk about protection, self-protection. So maybe they've been hurt by a particular thing in the past, or they're scared of a particular thing, and so to try and avoid getting hurt, they just avoid the situation, or they avoid getting close to people. And he actually said, what have you protected yourself from? Because actually you're not protecting yourself from anything. You're avoiding life, you're avoiding experiences, but you haven't actually protected yourself, because anything could happen at any time. So you're avoiding all these things, yet you're thinking that you're protecting yourself. You're actually not. It's not stopping you. It's not saving you from anything. It's just stopping you from experiencing life. He's not saying avoid all negative emotion, block that out. He's basically saying when you become aware that emotions are not you, but the emotions are something that you're observing, like your thoughts, you can then have a distance between yourself, your consciousness, and the emotion. So you can imagine there's a physical distance. Your consciousness is back here, your emotion is here. And when you can have that gap, then the emotion is, you can recognize the emotion and it doesn't bother you or in the same way. So for instance, because I've come across this concept through a lot of the teachers that I listen to or read, and they all express it in a slightly different way, but they're all saying the same thing. So basically, imagine that, say, like, my husband comes in for work and he throws a comment at me which makes me get defensive. Okay, so I've had a defensive reaction because it's roused some anger in me, it's hit on a nerve for me, and I fire something back, maybe unpleasant, without thinking, and then it could escalate into a row. Whereas if I had a space, a pause, so he said something to me, for instance, and like, oh, I didn't want that for dinner, why have you made that for? So I could instantly be like, because blah, 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 and have a inflammatory reaction. If I give some space, just a pause of a few seconds, that gives me chance to to recognize that I'm feeling angry, not to try and suppress the anger, to recognize that I'm feeling angry, but to then not react in the same way, but to actually be like, okay, I'm feeling angry, but I've given it that pause, and then you can respond from a place of clarity rather than a reaction. And so I am trying really hard with this. It's very difficult because obviously you've reacted in the same way probably for your whole life, but giving that space, just having a pause, literally a pause when you're about to say something, figuring out what you're observing, and then coming from a place of clarity and calm rather than just blowing up about something is kind of the key. So he's saying, like, to let things pass through you rather than holding on to them and letting them get stuck in you. And he describes it as like an inner thorn. So if your inner thorn is that when somebody criticizes you, you get angry, for instance, every time somebody touches that thorn in your arm, you're going to react in the same way unless you can pull the thorn out. So he said you can either spend your time bandaging up your arm, bandaging up the thorn to try and make sure that nobody touches it, and in the meantime kind of holding on to it and sticking with it, or you can try and pull it out by when the situation comes which triggers that you can let it pass through you and not buy into it. So one of the ways he describes it when he's having the interview with Oprah is relax and lean away from it. And I think those words so much. So ever since I had that interview, when I'm getting really wound up because I'm tired and the children are like, rah, rah, rah in my ear all the time, or being cross, whatever, I try really hard to think, relax and lean away from it. And it doesn't always work for me because I don't always think it, basically. So when I think it, it works. When I just react without having that distance, that space, that's when things get worse. So the other thing that he talks about is having an open heart. So he says that a lot of the time we close our hearts down. We close them down because we're afraid of stuff. So like that, everything comes back to fear. So we close down our heart from making a new relationship because we're scared of getting rejected or hurt. We close down an experience because it scares us, or we close down when somebody says, oh, I don't think that outfit really suits you, and then we have and we kind of close down. And if we can open our hearts up, this has really affected me ever since I've read this book. I start having a negative thought about a situation or a person, and he says literally, like, physically drop your shoulders down and just feel like that space is opening up, and fill it with love instead of filling it with negativity. Let love come into that situation. It really has altered my perceptions. Like, as soon as I start thinking, like, I don't know, something negative about somebody, if I just let that go and let some love come in instead, it really transforms how I feel, and it gives me a little lift as well. And then the last thing that I want to talk about the book, because I probably could talk for ages, is about control. So I'm a person who likes to be in control. I like to know what's happening. I like to know when it's going to happen. I like to plan. I'm quite an organised person, and so not having that control is kind of scary to me. So again, the fear thing's coming back. So that causes a lot of stress because you think this is going to go this way, and then if it doesn't go that way, you then you get the hump and you get stressed and your plans are thrown off. And so he's saying, let go of the need to control, because he comes back to the idea that we are one person on a planet which is spinning in space in the middle of a huge solar system, and we think that we can control what's going on, which we can't, and we don't need to. We need to like surrender our control. And if you just go, okay, we'll see what happens, it takes away the stress. So obviously there's certain things that you have to do, like you have to be at work at the same time, you have to drop your children to school, but he's not talking about that. He's saying like the bigger picture. Don't feel like you have to know everything, don't feel like you need to control everything. Relax and let it go and just enjoy it and see what happens. And that was a real revelation to me as well, because like I say, I am a person who likes control, and just it's freeing, like just letting go the need to know everything and just being like, okay, we'll see how it goes today. It just, again, it's not getting wrapped up in the internal chatter, which doesn't help you. It just stresses you out and causes negativity and fear. So the main things that I've taken away from this, like to sum up, is the open-heartedness, the giving up the control, the leaving the space between observing how you're feeling and giving it that distance so that you don't react without the awareness of what's happening. They're the main things that I've gained from this book. I'm gonna have to reread this. Like, you can see how many post-it notes I've put in the top, because I love rereading books like this. I find that the more often I reread them, the more it centers me and brings me back to this truth, these principles which are in the book. And so I'm going to make sure at least once a year that I reread this. I'm also totally a student at this. I'm not trying to profess that I have all the answers or that I know exactly what I'm doing and this comes easily to me. This is my life's work for me, is to progress and develop in this way, and I feel like I'm here in this lifetime to learn, and so this is part of my work, and I love this stuff. This is my favourite topic to talk about, and so I'm not trying to be some sort of expert. I'm just telling you like how this has been so wonderful for me, and I've gone back and listened to the interview with Michael Singer again, because I just feel like you could learn stuff every single time that you read it. So I hope that this has been interesting to you. I hope that it's something that you've taken something from, and it's something that you might be interested in. Let me know your thoughts, or if you have any recommendations along similar lines. And yeah, it'd be really good to have a chat in the comments, and I will speak to you soon. Bye.